you're going to suggest eliminating the storage?
Well, since it's not townhomes, you know, not such dense housing, I don't think that we need a common.
And that was
Well, that's
part
a
of,
common one.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
part of the PUD regulations where each townhouse had to have a minimum of 370 square feet of cubic feet of storage space, and it's really in an individual home that's.
But we don't need that now, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
A lot of my comments are more on the conditions, but talking about that, the fencing around the lots, there are, now I don't remember where I saw it, but there are conditions for, okay, here, on Exhibit A. Do we want to do the conditions now or wait till we?
Comment on the ones you want to comment on.
The fencing, the applicant shall install a 6-foot-high articulate masonry wall along the westerly and easterly property line of project and a 6-foot-high fence along the southerly property line next to the cemetery. So there's walls and there's a fence. And I think to help with the odors of the wastewater treatment plant, that if we planted trees there too, have the applicant plant trees
Yeah.
as a border.
And in the packet, I gave you a very quick proposed landscaping plan, and you just see that in the exhibits. That it was right in front of the conceptual roundabout, and it kind of gives you an idea in that little open space lot that's going to occur right next to the sewer treatment plant. Is there going to be a little park there, and then we can put the landscaping all the way down along that line there. And that's right in front of the Exhibit A for mitigation measures.
Oh, kind of back here. Okay. And then another question I had regarding widening of the existing 3rd Street. Will the utilities be undergrounded at that point from the east side of the project to Church Street?
We're widening on the south side of the road. We're eliminating the planter strip, removing 2 trees, 3 trees. There's 2 utility poles that we'll relocate.
Okay.
And then the curb and gutter are going to be moved back and then monolithically poured with a sidewalk. So there'll be a sidewalk, curb and gutter. So basically we're losing 4.5 feet of parking area, and that'll go back into the street.
But the
So
2 existing utility poles,
that's on the north side. and
there's some
everything.
on the south side too.
There's 2,
Yeah.
and those are not utility poles. Those are
Oh, okay.
what they call joint poles.
Okay.
One's a guy, and it just takes the thing and then jumps it over, and then they will be relocated backwards to handle the overhead
Okay.
service. Yeah.
And then lighting, will there be lighting added to the existing portion of 3rd Street?
We hadn't put that down, but that's something that we could consider. Yeah.
It is showing on the
Mhm.
the utility plan, Roger. Along the south side of 3rd Street, that new section, it does have street lights along that portion.
Yeah,
Okay.
the 3rd Street through the subdivision will have lighting.
Yeah, I imagine
Yeah,
that.
but the section between North Street
And
I
Church,
mean,
or
and-
north, yeah.
and the westerly boundary, there won't be any street lighting on that side, on the south side.
Is that a good idea?
That might be it until we get to the conditions. There's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I might as well wait till we get to conditions.
See the general comments first, then we'll get down to the conditions. Commissioner?
I'm okay with it
Okay.
so far.
All of the same?
No questions.
I was interested and had on my list a request for design review of the buildings, the landscaping as well, and I have added the walls as conditions. We had those before to come back here for review, and I would like to see them again.
Wall's going to be 8 feet high.
Well, somewhere it says 6.
Okay,
here,
6.
That we just went through with
I mean,
Vanda.
what did you want to review on it when it's?
I mean, before when we were going to look at the houses and what they looked like, I thought we were asking them to come back for a review of what the houses looked like when they knew more. and I would
Yeah.
like to see that happen again.
See, that was a planned unit development in which it was a package deal, and everybody's related to everybody else, and you want to make sure whatever they do is consistent. You're dealing with 27 houses, which means you would be bringing 27 separate items up here over time, which is, unless it was something, if you set some standards, you say, 10 feet high and no more, or something like that, staff can handle that. If he wants to go 12, he has to come back to us. But if you set some standards, you wouldn't have to be tying up your agenda. You can say, if you work within these standards that we've established for this subdivision, no problem. If you do anything else, it has to come before the planning commission. And since we meet once a month, this would delay every one of those projects.
Well, I'm just thinking of how beautifully Creek Bridge went along with front porches and exposure to the street, making it look as friendly as possible coming into town, and I would like to make sure, and those are all individual houses, and I don't quite know how we
Well, even with the-
manage that.
The apartments on McCollum, the city,
Yes,
the population went through and recreated the original design, right?
Yes.
So I think we have to see the design plan.
But some of the houses need to come back to us, I think. As you know, in the last meeting, I was very upset with really tall porches that are not low front porches from our past. So that's why I'm asking. The other is the landscape plan. I think that we ought to see the whole thing because of trees, because of their smaller yards with backyards.
Well, landscaping would come to us anyway.
Well, certainly the
Well, I
design
want
of
to
the
make sure that
houses.
it does that.
Yeah, that, you can put a condition on there that just says the landscaping plan will be brought back before it's approved. The subdivision can be approved without the landscaping plan.
And
then it can be set. Yeah,
somewhere
okay.
along the line, I would like our
But that-
design review of houses.
But that landscaping doesn't include landscaping on-site,
Yeah.
individual lots.
Understand.
It's only the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I might as well say right now what I say in private. I am 100% against purple or pink crepe myrtle trees being put into San Juan's landscaping environment because those are the brands of the malls in Morgan Hill and Gilroy, and we are not a mall. That's just my private, public opinion.
And the trees that you would like to see?
Pepper trees, oak trees, even some buckeyes. We have pear trees. We have all kinds of trees that are not specifically used to brand other cities' malls.
He's taking good notes.
Taking those out. Now, Mr. Chairman, if I could ask, Steve Emmerich is one of the developers, and really before you make a decision whether you want to look at the design of the homes, I think that you should ask him what his feeling is in that, because he's the one that's got to put up the money and take the risk for doing it.
Is he here?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
would it be tonight that we could hear about that?
Oh, he's here.
Okay.
Would you like to speak, sir?
My name's Steve Emick. I represent the owners on the project, the Borgio Brothers Investment Company. And my understanding was we were going to probably look at about 4 different models, 4 different sizes, and then get our architect to draw those for us and elevations and so forth, and that we'd have to go through ARC and engineering with the planning commission. That was my understanding. With those 4 models, knowing that we're just going to flip them and so forth. That'd be pretty much what you're looking at is 4 different styles and sizes to try to fit the various lots that are in the subdivision. Is that satisfactory that you would, Roger, am I wrong that we were not going to go
Yeah.
through architectural?
Yeah,
in front of the
yeah.
planning
Yeah, I wasn't asking for architectural design review
Yeah.
of each home.
Just give them a
Yeah,
concept
so look
of
at
the type of homes and the frontage and the variations. Yeah, that's fine.
We did that with the townhomes. We had Jeff King do some elevations and some other projects that he worked on with the actual photos to give you an idea. We'd do the same thing.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? While I'm up here?
You've probably done this already, but I strongly encourage you to drive around town and look at some of the current homes and get some ideas on
Sure.
design.
Well, one of the things we're really trying to match is what's, like you
Yeah,
said, what's just
Creek
been
Bridge,
done down
yeah.
there in the last 10, 15 years. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Have I missed where, in the, what document is it that will notify people about the smells at the,
That was in the
That was-
conditions, the 37 original
Yes.
conditions.
Yeah.
That would have to be
It's in there.
in the deeds.
in the deeds?
Or wasn't that, is
Yes.
that correct, Roger?
It's still in there, yes.
It's disclosed.
Okay.
And we were notified about that when we bought our home in Creek Bridge.
How bad an issue has it been?
It's not as bad as it had been. We had trucks coming in from outside the area quite a bit, and it was a big problem then. But I'm not right next to them.
It says there, in item number 10, it says, "A note shall be placed on the final subdivision map requiring notification to all buyers of lots within the boundaries of the subdivision that the subdivision is adjacent to the city of San Juan Bautista's wastewater treatment facility and that odors may be present periodically."
So that's on the final map.
That's on the final map.
That's a condition
And
of
then that-
approval.
Once it's on the final map and is recorded, then that will also occur on the sales of each lot.
It will,
It'd be on the deed of every
That's
on
property, right?
each deed.
That was my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's like Silver Creek does the same.
just wanted to make sure we all understand that in the public.
Okay,
Thank you.
Any other questions?
we're still going.
All right.
Thank you.
Available.
I got a few questions on these upper lots there. It's pretty steep up in that area. How are you gonna handle that part? The engineering over there. And then the drainage ditch up behind the back, because the cemetery road water runs down through that property right there.
So we've been working to address both those concerns with your city staff. And the plans, for tentative map stage, you don't necessarily solve everything, but once we get that approval, everything will be ironed out and taken care of. Conceptually, the idea for the grade is the step the pads, and we have between, I think, a maximum of a 4-foot difference between pads, which is taken up by a retaining wall. Each retaining wall will have a fence on top of it, which is an additional 6 feet. So really, the house below gets protection from the view above by the fence that's on top of the wall. And the grade difference is gradually made up step to step to step. And drainage-wise, Roger and I have talked about doing a valley gutter, some sort of an open drainage system, but there's also the option to put it into a pipe, enclose it, and route it around. Everything's been designed to accommodate all those flows. It's just a matter of what the city's preference is for the method of conveying it beyond the proposed improvements and into the city storm drain system.
Yeah, when we went over the map with Alan, we recognized that the portions of the cemetery drain into this lot, and we have to intercept it and bring that water around and then down, and the subdivision will have its own storm drain retention system conforming to the state water pollution prevention plan, the SWIP program, and so then we can accommodate that.
Another question is just sewer plant now, or the water being treated for they could use it for planting and for lawns and?
Yes, we have the capabilities of providing reclaimed water from the sewer treatment plant. The infrastructure is completed. We did that about 1.5 years ago, where we have reclaimed purple pipelines in the city streets, and we have it currently stubbed out to 3 locations. One is the Creek Bridge subdivision, the Lux Library, and then the Abbey Park. The system extends all the way across and under 156 and clear up to the San Juan Hollister Road, the reclaimed pipe, and that's just planning for the future.
And then the other question is, the drain off of this, we don't have no retention ponds on this piece of property then, do we?
Yeah, and Alan can address that. Yeah, we will.
The concept for retention on this property is to do it underground.
And
So
that-
basically, the pipes will be oversized, and we've also included, they're called rain tanks. And what they are is they almost look like a milk carton, a milk crate.
It'd be
So they
stored
have
underground.
sides, and we oversize the trench, we fill it with rock, and we allow it to percolate into the soil around there. And that oversize takes a surge from a real heavy downpour lets it settle out in these tanks. Some of it will infiltrate, and some of it will be metered out at the pre-development levels into the city storm drain
You're
system.
talking about putting like a 4-foot pipe underground?
Yeah.
And then
that's
the
in
water
essence
runs
what
into
it is.
that, and then it's
Yeah.
got perk holes in it, it perks
Right.
out.
Right.
And then the other question was, I think, do we have any landscaping restrictions for drought-resistant plants instead of lawns?
We'll have to add that as a condition, I think.
We add that to a condition, because I think we did that on the Ken Autobotes thing, where all
Right.
landscaping we drought resistant, and that was,
I think we should start
Yeah.
going that
And
route because of the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
But
may
there,
not.
there was a statement in there, as far as your conditions go, for drought
that was one of
landscaping.
the mitigation measures that I had
Not
put
yet.
on, yeah.
No, yeah.
And if you have design review of the landscape, the final landscape plan, that gives you a chance to make sure that that's all implemented. So whether it was a condition now or not, just the fact that you get a chance to review the landscape plan gives you the chance to impose those types of requirements. And I don't think any developer's against being drought resistant. I mean, they're gonna end up paying for the water, so.
And the water retention that you were just talking about, is that maintained somehow over the years?
Yeah,
there's-
one of the conditions is the landscape and improvement district that they had to form to take care of the maintenance of this landscape area that's kind of a public, quasi-public feature, as well as the storm drain system and the street lighting. All those elements that they'll bring to the system are not going to be a burden on your system, because there's a method to pay for it from their own.
I have another question. Back to the initial study, on page 6, where it discusses the project will include provision for construction activities, applied water to all construction activities, and areas where dust and air pollution can occur. Application of water will be required. Can we use reclaimed water?
Yes.
We can.
Yeah, mhm.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, commissioners, where are we? We are being asked to, let's see the front of this thing. And we have to do a lot of voting on this one. Okay, we've discussed this.
I think we should go through the conditions again.
You want one by one?
Are we through with everything else besides that? As far as mitigation measures, is everybody comfortable with that?
Yes.
Seems to have covered everything.
You mean, you're going through the EIR, David?
It's an environmental
Yeah.
analysis, it's not an EIR.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
So you got Exhibit A mitigation measures and monitoring programs. The monitoring program it isn't just approve the condition. The new law says, who's going to check it, make sure it's done. So somebody will be, for every mitigation, you're going to have somebody responsible to make sure it went through or was done or whatever was required. And then you've got Exhibit A, conditions of approval. There's 29 there, and there are 3 pages of mitigation measures.
And we've added condition number 30, the applicant shall submit to the planning commission a landscaping plan for the streets. That's 30. 31, the applicant shall submit a design review of the exterior landscaping, of the exterior elevations of the homes to be built on each lot. Yeah. And 32 is all landscaping on lots shall be drought resistant type, and irrigation systems shall be drip irrigation type systems.
Okay, those are the ones that
I have a question about number 23. The applicant shall install a 6-foot-high fence along the northerly line of lots 15 to 18. So that would be backing up to the O'Neill property. I mean, all those properties. Is that what we, that's not what,
The other items were along the wastewater treatment plant, along the cemetery, and then along the lots on the southeast side. But there was nothing to address this lot from 18 to 32, right along here, the rear of these lots here.
so we're simply going to ask for a fence, not a
Well,
wall?
there will be a retaining wall, and on top of that fence,
Okay.
retaining wall will be fence.
Let's see. So the O'Neills asked,
The O'Neill is behind parcel C.
yeah, and they asked for an architectural design privacy wall, preferably 8 feet. That would be a
And-
wall.
Is that a reasonable condition, a request rather?
Well, I showed her that the elevation of Lot 23 is approximately
Oh.
12 feet below the surface there, and that that it would not block the thing, and by putting an 8-foot, that would really deny her a better view and everything, and so I felt that the 6-foot, consistent with this, would be better, yeah.
Okay, and it's 6-foot fence, not wall. Is that-
6-foot fence, yes.
And she agreed.
Well, it isn't conditioned because somebody wants it. It has to be reasonable and achieve what you want to do, not just you want it, we'll stick it on there. The guy's paying for it anyway, and I'm very conscious of that.
And,
Yeah,
and,
I got
and-
one more question.
Sure.
This Third Street, is it gonna be a full street all the way down to the exit out of this subdivision, or Christopher putting in the other part of it?
I didn't understand that. Third Street's going to be widened to the entrance of the wastewater treatment plant,
Just like before.
just like before, yeah.
So it's gonna go all the way down to the intersection where they go down to the subdivision right there. Third Street.
This project was full improvements on the project side, Roger.
Yeah.
To Third Street, so
And-
that when the Christopher project came in, they would finish by putting in the curb gutter and sidewalk on that side, on their side.
Okay.
Within the subdivision, on that long cul-de-sac,
Right.
I'm sorry,
If you come, you're coming out of the subdivision here, coming around down,
yeah.
it's just street here is not gonna be a full street yet.
It'll be
All the way up to the
two-thirds,
corner.
it'll be two-thirds of a street.
Yeah.
It'll be a half street of 30 feet and then 12-foot of travel lane on the north side. So it's a two-thirds of a street. That's the same condition that was on the 40. Now, when
So later on, if a Christopher develop, he has to widen the rest of the street up.
that is correct.
Right.
Is that gonna give you enough for 2-lane traffic in there?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe plenty.
See, yeah. The
Only
half-
for traffic,
half- The half street is 20 feet to the face of curb and another 12, so that's 32 feet from the face of curb to the edge of the sidewalk. Two travel lanes are 12 and 12, is 24, and an 8-foot parking is 32.
So, and there'll still be enough traffic
Yeah.
for room for both.
Now, the section from the North Street to the subdivision is going to be 4.5 feet widened, and that'll be 35 feet from face of curb to face of curb, so it'll be two 13.5s and an 8-foot parking, and it'll be a monolithic pour.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Yubel, you wanted to go through the conditions?
Well, now that we've added the drought-tolerant landscaping and the design review and landscape review, I don't have anything else.
Okay. Okay, now we've got to go by
Oh.
the...
Okay, the
That's okay.
resolution? Are we,
Well, I was going to start going through what we got to do here.
Now, yeah,
when we get to the resolution, nowhere on it does it indicate the number of homes.
thanks to
The
what?
resolution doesn't indicate the number of homes.
That would be on the final map. We can put it in there someplace. You can put it, approves the vested tentative map and development plan for the revised Ambrosio Vista PUD of 27 units with mitigation measures, monitoring program. That would be in the resolved. If that would
Okay.
make a difference.
It seems like we should, what if they came in with 35?
Or if it says 27, it would say
It will,
27.
yeah.
I mean, if you have it say 27, there's no question.
But if they wanted to do less than
I
27.
think the technical part is that when you approve a tentative map, they cannot add lots to it, that when they record the final map, we have to sign a statement, the city engineer and everything, that the map substantially conforms to the approved tentative map.
And
It's a
extra units
statement right
would
on
be
the thing.
substantial.
And so,
Compliance.
when you're approving this map, it is approving the tentative map, and the final map has to substantially conform. Now, that means substantially means that there might be a line that might be different than shown on here, a little small line. It doesn't have to be exact, but it's substantially, and that means the number of lots and the layout of it.
So it's going to have to look like this.
Yeah.
You can't decide to put a road coming from the other
Yeah.
side. That's it.
Okay, that's
I
fine.
mean, and that's what you're approving. That is the, and then the fact that it's vested means that we can't mess with them for so many years. It doesn't have to come back and renew this. It holds itself.
And it's implied too, is if you go back to the page in the staff report on the third page, and let's go back to that, and they'll say there that you've received a presentation from the applicant, you've received oral and written comments, and you closed the public hearing, and you discussed and deliberated, and you make the following findings. And those findings are right out of the PUD ordinance. It says that the project is consistent with the densities of the zoning district for which it is located within, that the use is necessary and desirable in relationship to the purpose and intent of the San Juan Bautista General Plan, this title, and the economic, social, and environmental status of the city, that the use is properly related to other uses, transportation facilities in the area, and will not cause undue environmental impacts relating to the noise, odor, and pollution, that the use will not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of persons living or working within this vicinity, or be materially detrimental to the public welfare of the city and its residents, and that the mitigation measures and monitoring programs and conditions of approval for the project will result in a less than significant impact to the environment. Approval of the initial study and mitigation and negative declaration for the D. Ambrosio revised PUD project. It's revised with the following findings: that the initial study and mitigation identified in the mitigation negative declaration environmental analysis report shows that there is no substantial evidence in light of the whole record before the Planning Commission that the project may have a significant effect on the environment, and that the project plans and agreement with the applicant with the mitigation measures, monitoring programs, and conditions of approval would avoid effects or impacts to where there are no significant adverse effects to the environment in the surrounding area, and that the Planning Commission, based on the independent judgment and analysis of the whole record before it and the mitigation measures and monitoring programs and conditions of approval, determined that there's no substantial evidence that the project will have a significant impact on the environment.
Okay, so that's findings we're going to make. And the findings are right in the resolution, word for word. And approving the initial study and mitigated negative declaration, I think that's going to have to be an independent vote. Plan reviewed staff report, environmental analysis report, initial study, mitigation, and monitoring.
And by approving the resolution for the tentative map, you're now for review, and it's the bottom line, therefore, be it resolved that you're approving the tentative map and Exhibit A to be made a part hereof of the approval. And Exhibit A consists of two parts. One is the mitigation measures, monitoring programs, and the second is the conditions of approval amended and added as per the Planning Commission's desire, and that would be 32 conditions.
Do we want a separate vote for the environmental review, or is that included in
Yes,
this?
I would say a separate vote on the findings and then a separate vote on the resolution.
Okay, let's take the first one. Regarding the initial study and the mitigated negative declaration for the D'Ambrosio Vista revised PUD project with findings and mitigations. He read out the conditions of this. I would entertain a motion that we do in fact approve the initial study and mitigated negative declaration with the mitigations and the monitoring.
Can I simply say so moved?
So moved. Is there a second? So seconded?
I'll second it.
So seconded? All in favor? Oh, we'll take a vote on that. And this is for the approving the initial study and mitigated negative declaration.
Commissioner Rivera,
Aye.
Commissioner Galarte,
Yes.
Commissioner Garrett,
Aye.
Commissioner Badera,
Aye.
Commissioner Franco.
Aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes unanimously.
Okay, now, part two. We have a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista approving the tentative map for the project with mitigation measures, monitoring programs, and conditions of approval, and recommending to the City Council the approval for a PUD, Plan Unit Development Permit. Okay. You want me to read the whereases?
No.
Okay. This being now therefore be resolved, the Planning Commission approves the vested tentative map for the and development plan with mitigation measures, monitoring programs, conditions of approval, marked A, attached to and made a part thereof, and recommends to the City Council. We'll entertain a motion for approval.
Would you amend the conditions of approval?
Subject to the amendments of the conditions of approval.
Oh, I thought, okay. Because we had all those conditions, and then we added 3 more to the bottom.
That's part of the final resolution.
Yeah. She just wanted to make sure the 3 were there.
It's there.
May I ask a question?
Yes?
The city has design guidelines for new single-family neighborhoods, and I'm wondering if that's one of the conditions that you're adding, that they follow the city design guidelines.
That would come up when the architectural design comes up.
Okay.
He'll be bringing in the architectural designs for the houses and the reversals.
Right, because a lot of the things that were mentioned this evening do not follow our design guidelines. I just want to alert you to that,
Could I hear that again? They
please. We
do
have
not?
new single-family.
Would you come to the podium? Yeah, because I think we may have
I
something
know you
here.
closed the public hearing, but we have design guidelines. The city adopted design guidelines, and we have design guidelines specifically for new single-family neighborhoods. And there's a whole list of how these should look. And it's a number of the guidelines are quite different from what is being proposed. And so I
And
hope
what
Can you
that
give me an example?
Yes. What are the
Okay.
differences?
varied front yard setbacks, varied side yard setbacks, varied lot widths, garage placement preferably in rear yards and oriented with a side entry, traditional neighborhood streets, traditional grid-style streets, dead-end streets should be avoided. Rolling curbs are discouraged, vertical face curbs consistent with San Juan Bautista neighborhoods, landscaping and use of parkways and planted medians. Walled and gated communities are not preferred. And when we did the Creek Ridge project, we did review fencing specifically, so you might want to add that as a condition.
There is a difference, Kara. There is a difference. This is a PUD, and by nature of a PUD, the Planning Commission can use innovative designs and vary the side yards, front yards, and the design parameters
Okay.
of that. And that's the nature of a PUD. And that's why we've elected to go this route, because of the
Well, I
nature
hope the
of it.
developer is being given a copy of our design guidelines so that they'll be prepared when they do present them. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sure staff will take care of that.
Can I ask a question, being that you opened it up again?
You can ask a question.
Okay. Richard Ponce, 93 4th Street.
Usually people make comments, but questions are different.
Question. I'm sorry that I didn't catch it earlier, but I understood that they're going to be using reclaimed water for the landscape there, and understand that reclaimed water needs to be metered and tested. Who is going to be paying for that? Will the city be paying for that, or the developer?
The developer. Yes.
That is in the
Development
conditions?
expense. Thank you. Okay. We do have a,
I think Eric has,
Yeah,
Oh.
it's just based off of some of the comments you had. Just real quick, is just addressing the lighting on 3rd Street. It sounded like 3rd Street between North and where the property begins, there's not going to be any lighting. So we're going to have a lit street on one end and a lit street after North with a dark section in between. And that just seems a little ridiculous.
well, at this point, if the developer, you can see the limits of his property. He can't go and do stuff on your property or anybody else's property. And at some time as other development occurs, like on this road here, putting 2/3 of a road in. And sure, that's a substandard road for most cases. But with development being proposed on the other side, they'll finish that road to the full standards of the city.
but that's not the area that he's talking about, I think.
I'm talking about the existing between 3rd Street where it is narrowed down. There's no street lights in there. As it is, there's a street light on the end near Donner, and there's a street light past North, but in that little section, it's dark as can be. And although the developer might not be responsible for putting lighting, I think the city should look into figuring out how to, I mean, it would only take a light or two in that section. We're not talking 100 lights. It's
Oh, I
only 100 yards long.
This one would be something you could refer to city council.
Okay. And then
Work with staff, and I see a letter to the city council saying, hey, we got an issue in our neighborhood, help us resolve that.
Okay. And then the only thing I wanted to point out is the street width is only 27 feet, at least in front of my house. I measured it in 3 different spots. And it looks like the proposed is that it's supposed to go out 35. That means it's going to be completely taking off the sidewalk and the median. I don't know whether it's wider at one end and that's where it was measured, but I'm trying to make sure we don't have a narrow point down and then it coming back out again.
Hourglass.
Yeah, an hourglass, yeah. It sounded like that we were trying to resolve the fact that it's a narrow street, and what I'd hate to see is just this 40, 50-foot section that narrows way down and then pops back out. And those were our concerns based on after I spoke the first time.
Thank you.
I would refer that one to staff. Okay. We do have a motion to approve this resolution as stated. Was there a second?
Excuse me, did we have a,
I don't think we had a
we didn't
motion.
have a
We didn't
motion?
have a motion
Oh,
yet.
okay.
Not for the resolution.
No.
I'm entertaining a motion for approval of the resolution for the approving the tentative map, etc., for the PUD.
12. Would be Resolution 214-12.
12, okay.
And I would recommend in the now therefore be at the 3rd, 4th sentence, it would be, and with the mitigation and monitoring programs and conditions of the amended approval. Approval as amended. Approvals as amended.
Approval as amended.
Can I suggest in the title that you refer to it as a revised tentative map? You want to do that?
Mhm.
Because we have another one.
I think for clarity, that would probably be a good idea.
Approving the revised tentative map?
It's D'Ambrosio Vista is the name of it?
Yes.
Just that.
Okay, so we have revisions in the title, we have revisions in the resolved, we have additions to the conditions of approval. Okay, now we'll accept a motion for approval.
I move that we accept the resolution.
Motion to
I'll second it.
Is that dash 12?
Second,
Yes.
yes.
The revised?
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor? Oh,
Roll call?
that's tested years of calling for a...
Commissioner Rivera,
Aye.
Commissioner Gallardo,
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett,
Aye.
Commissioner Banderas,
Aye.
Commissioner Franco.
Aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes unanimously.
Okay, congratulations, sir. Well, that's something new in the city here.
I'd like to ask a question at this point. I'm not sure, maybe Georgiana would know. The Musatelli project where Greg lives, how did it happen that the lights weren't put in? Was that property sold and then the plan didn't go with the project, or?
It's Eric, actually.
Did I say Eric?
You said Greg, it's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was Stephen Pace's development.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and that was the one where the curb and gutter got put out and it should have been moved back to accommodate the widening, and somebody made the decision to leave the poles there and put the curbs around it, and it was a mistake.
That's
And
why
this
we're-
developer has got to correct the problem. And that's sad
That's why we're in
that-
that problem now.
Yeah, that's,
Despite the fact that went on for 12 years in a lawsuit or two.
yeah.
Messy.
So planning used to go very slowly in San Juan
Well, let's
and not
move,
get it right.
let's move our city along here. Okay, that was 7A. 7B, consider accepting proposed draft general plan update. Now, general plan update, let me make a couple of comments on this before we start. The action tonight is to ask the commission to accept the draft so that the environmental review can proceed. We know that the plan is not in its final phase, word for word. Maybe even a couple of concepts might come up. But is there enough in there now that we can start the review? Now, just because it's written does not mean that what is written is going to go through. Environmental review may come out and say, hey, this is not possible, or this should not be done. So it's going to work two ways. And the other thing I want to make sure everybody understands is that this is not something that was put together by a bunch of college kids as to be stuffed down our throats. That's not how it was put together. Day one, we had the contract with with the school and this class. They did not come up with these ideas out of the woodwork. They came out and they had several meetings, public meetings, well noticed and bilingual. They had their plan van, which way they went out on the streets to critical places, looking for people to comment. Because let's face it, you send out a survey, you're lucky to get 10% back. They had meetings with your strategic committee. They had meetings with the general plan committee. And this is what the folks put together as they interpreted it, what the city of San Juan Bautista wanted. Now, you're going to talk about noisy minorities, silent minorities. I'm talking about the people who were there working on it, giving their input so that the kids could work on it. So I don't, there was comments before that this is being railroaded, that where these people get the right to come up and tell us what to do. They're not telling us what to do. We, the people, told them what we wanted our city to look like, and in terms of today's planning concepts, they put a package together. And then the other thing I want to talk about is the LA Times ran a article on the 31st of July, and had to do with they're going to revamp their zoning code. And we're talking about a city and people don't want to change, and let's find out where this comes from. The LA zoning code is probably 50 some odd years old. Started with 97 pages, now it's 800 pages. But at the time the zoning ordinance was put together, it was like a post-war project. And what did people want? They wanted homes. GI Bill allowed them to get homes. People were putting homes together. They were putting together a town based on the thinking of the day. And so the regulations which ultimately became wielded bureaucracy in the zoning code. But the concept was, what do we want our city to look like? And how do we want to regulate it? And that was the thinking of the 40s, right after that war. Today, when you start looking at zoning ordinances, we're not looking at what those folks needed. We're looking at an age today, high-tech, highly mobile. You know, from the time that they had, you went to a destination, to the time you had modular hotels, to the time you had destination resorts. That wasn't available in those days. So you had to have regulations for new concepts. But that's what people want today. And so when you're doing a general plan, it isn't like what we've always done. It doesn't matter what we've always done. The city of San Juan Bautista was the largest city on the west side of the Gavilan Mountains between San Francisco and Los Angeles. It was big league. Okay, it was dying. Came up a few times. And again, we're in a city that appears to be dying because we're not growing. Today's thinking, we want our city to grow in a decent condition, but maintain the history, maintain the concepts that we had. And this would allow us now to say, okay, we didn't have those kind of houses back in the 40s or 50s. We used to have new houses. People didn't care about water in those days. There was so much of it and so few people. Today, we're short of water. So we're trying to think, okay, we want front yards that look nice, but we also can't afford there isn't the water to do it with. And they have the water police to make sure. So when we're thinking about general plan, think about how we want the city to grow, because we want it to grow or it's going to die. It's going to die, period. So to avoid that, you have to figure, what can we do to make it work? And this general plan is going to be the thinking of the 21st century. It has to be. If we just go back to where things were, who's going to want to be here? Because all the people that were there have grown with it. You know, nobody's not using air conditioning if it's wanted. Nobody has one car if they have two. A remnant of the old days was one-car garage. One-car garage. Name a house that has one car. If you had a significant other marriage couple, that's two cars. If you got a kid who's 16 plus, they all want their car. That wasn't something available in the 40s and 50s. So just when we make our comments, think about that. Have the students thought about the concepts today? Now, when I went to planning school, that was one thing. Today's planning school, I'm sure, would be a lot different if I was to attend some of those classes, because new concepts have come up. And these students are, I'm hoping to want us to give us the best of what's available today for the 21st century. So that said, Commissioners, do you have any other comments you'd like to make before I open this up for public hearing? That's my position.
Just the fact that this may not be approved for another year, right? June of 2015. So there's time.
So things that are in there, we'll start doing the environmental review. They'll tell us, you can't do this, you can't do that, or these are major problems or significant impacts that you don't want to mess with. And if we'll still be going over it, refining it, adding stuff, putting stuff out. If you add enough of it, that'll trigger a review for the environmental people. If you take something out, again, it might trigger environmental review. It might make less of an impact.
How do we go about making changes to this draft as we go along? Do we set time frame to study it?
Write them
together,
up, and we can have a periodic meeting, bring it up. We can ask people to hold their comments and maybe have a couple of meetings. Then all that goes back to the environmental review people. But we can say, this concept is too old for our city. We want something better, something new. But again, you won't know until you start going through it on a word-by-word basis.
So we can set up time in our agendas to discuss certain elements of this as we go along.
For sure.
And I see that an important part is the strategic committees.
Strategic planning committee.
Their whole approach, and I would like to invite members of the strategic committee who are on special committees to come to those specific hearings for
Are they all on
element.
are they all on the mailing list?
I have a mailing list for the strategic planning group, yes.
Did they get our planning commission agendas? put them on the
I'm not
agenda
sure if
list.
all of them do, but I will.
Put all of them on the list, because this is going to be critical if we're going to be discussing this general plan.
At the strategic committee that I attended the other day, in which John Freeman was elected chairman, I suggested to them that they contact City Hall, get on our agenda for everything so that they really know what's going on.
Right.
And if we can adopt this and then work on it, I would be happy to see that happen.
And I want to just make sure you understand, you're not adopting this thing tonight.
I
You're
understand.
accepting it so that it can go through the process of environmental review, and it can grow and be massaged during that process and developed as the environmental process grows before it gets back to you, because you're going to adopt it back in next May, June, or September, sometime next year.
I want to keep a handle
It's
on
a
it.
growing process, and a general plan is not cast in stone. It's flexible and it grows, just like Chairman Franco says, and it's something that can be modified and changed as it grows. And even the state law allows up to 4 or 5 changes per year.
We,
So you're allowed to amend it.
and
Yeah.
the people who would be working with it, the people who are going to be commissioners, who are going to be council people, I would hope that we will invite them to our sessions as we go through this, so that they're aware that this is really their working tool. And I'm hoping that it looks like a tool when we finish, so that they will use it.
Well, like I said, the reason that book is put together is not because of what the students did, but what the general plan committee, their public hearings, and even the other commissions and committees that got into it, came up with this document. So it's up to the planning commission, to review, refine, and make sure it's environmentally sound, defensible.
That's my understanding.
Okay? Any comments before we start?
Well, I reviewed the general plan, the draft, as it sits today, and I've written up 53 comments in the last review and submitted to the city staff.
Yeah.
Whether they use it or not, I don't know. I know that the draft itself is a living document of the city, and it will live and breathe based on our input and as we continue to nurture it to the direction we want it to go. And I'm comfortable that that draft sits there today, giving us the proper direction to proceed with this approval process.
I looked at it again today, and I couldn't help but notice that McCollum is misspelled every time it's used. So that has to be changed.
That is critical.
But it is the document that should guide all of the actions that the planning commissioners take and the city council members take, and it needs to reflect.
So this is a public hearing item. So, using the same format, the issue is to consider accepting the proposed draft general plan update and recommending to the city council that they approve the environmental review work to start. So, since we've had staff, we've had commissioners, public comments, oral.
I have John Freeman.
Mr. Freeman?
All right, John.
Good evening. And I did email out some comments to everybody who had an email address on the planning commission earlier today, and to the city staff. Even included one of the pretty pictures out of the general plan. So to help you identify what it is. I got maybe a little specific. I don't mean to. I'm not quite sure how the process is really going to play out. But I would suggest that we treat it like a cafeteria, and we pick and choose what you like, and if there's some things that we don't like, like the beets, just leave them aside. I went to all the meetings that Cal Poly had, down in the community center. My wife participated in one of the interviews on the streets. So I do know that there was a lot of public input, and I'm well aware of that. But still, there were some things in the 340-page or 358-page document that weren't in any of those meetings, so, you know, so I just, I like the plan, I like kind of the general ideas. I just think we pick and choose what we really want. You know, I have some suggestions in my paper. I would like to see more sustainable growth, smarter growth. I'd like to see all new houses have, if possible, passive or active solar built into them so they can have utility bills of $30 a month and such. And there's cities in the Bay Area that are doing that now, so it's not impossible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And your comments that we've received will be forwarded to the staff.
Okay, thank you.
So Matt, you're a contact person now.
Yeah, I've compiled all the comments I've received so far, so I believe David's down to about 39.
So how does that work? Do you just accept everything people tell you, or do you consult
Well, we
with
had
Roger,
a public
or-
comment period, which ended at the end of July.
Right, yeah.
And now I've compiled it, and we just have to figure out how to move forward with it.
Okay.
There's a lot of sort of grammatical things that I'm going to be working with Cal Poly to go through, and just I went through this entire thing, and you probably see the red stars on the side. Those are all grammar things.
Okay.
So they have a little bit to fix on that.
So fix that and call me.
And yeah, then as far as the content, I think those future meetings that Georgiana talked about will be very helpful too. Like, for example, Kara had some great suggestions for the historical preservation section as far as the recent history that wasn't addressed. And I think that'd be very helpful to have in there. So, but in order to do that, we should do that in this type of setting. We won't be doing anything, direct changes without, review and approval. So
We just give it to you so the file gets in one place. Yeah. Okay, does anyone else would like to speak?
Carl Vaughn?
Cara?
Thank you, Cara Vonk, again. I was there. I'm a member of the General Plan Committee, and I attended every single session. And I did submit written comments. They were emailed on Sunday. Took me a day and a half to go through the whole thing and think about it and write up my comments. And there are a couple, it did focus primarily on the historic preservation element. And I think it is really important to have the institutional memory recorded as it does in our current general plan. There's a whole thing on the history and the status of historic preservation. Because, 20 years is a long time. I may not even be alive after 20 years. So memories fade, staff moves on, people move on, and I think it's important to have a record of what's happened. There are a couple of things I forgot that I'd like to add. Well, first of all, the certified local government, that was done, and I looked up the date, May 12th, 2005, excuse me. That's when the California Historical Resources Commission authorized us to be a CLG. And the city adopted the historic plan, and the city also adopted comprehensive city design guidelines in 2004. And I think people are forgetting about those two documents.
Will you email them to Matt?
Okay, I'll email that. And then the last comment I want to make, well, first of all, I don't see, if you're going to be making amendments to the draft, then how does that impact the EIR process? Are they going to redo the EIR review after they get
We don't know how significant they will be. If something's significant, it will go to them, and they will have to include that in the process before they can finish the job.
So maybe you should have these meetings before the students start on the EIR process.
No, I want to send that to them so they start working, because there's a lot of stuff that's very general that they can work with.
Okay.
If something big came up, we'd say, hey, come on back, we need to talk.
All right.
We do that to staff. But again, if we foresaw something significant that we weren't sure about, we'd have to hold it up. But I haven't found anything, these commissioners apparently haven't found anything that's so significant that would make a change,
I see.
significant change that would result in environmental impact.
Okay.
So at that point, if there was something, we would hold it up. We wouldn't even be here talking about it. We'd just say, hey guys, it's not going to work. But that's what we want to find out. If there's something significant that anybody comes up with, say, hey, the dam's breaking, sewage treatment plant's ready to split, that would be something we would stop for. I mean, because that would have an effect on everything that's
Right.
beyond it. And so since we haven't found anything of that nature, let's start working, because any of the changes we're talking about are probably just going to be minor.
Okay, because I do have one last comment.
Oh, and the commission would have, before the commission even votes on it, say we've made some minor changes, and in our viewpoint, we see that it's not going to have a significant impact, and we'll have to the commission will have to vote on the environmental correctness of that document.
Okay, so the EIR is going to come back to you.
Oh, we have to approve it
Okay.
someday.
Okay, then this is kind of a stylistic comment as well. Our current general plan is really well written, and it really conveys a sense of place of what San Juan Bautista is all about. The new one, it's very formulistic. You know, it's like plug in the number kind of thing, and maybe you have to do that when you have a lot of people working on it. But, you know, the current plan, I hope we can build in some of the language that's in our current plan, and a lot of it is introductory material. Like, it talks about the surrounding landscape being part of the city. It talks about the sweep of the curve and how it prepares visitors for a step back in time when they arrive here. Those kinds of things to really give a sense of who we are about. So I'm hoping that some of that can be built into the plan. And I just felt that the historic element part of it got very short shrift, which is really hard to believe, because, you know, our whole economic well-being relies on historic tourism. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time, Cara.
Okay, that's,
You've generated some thoughts.
I think there's some significant thoughts there, yeah. Especially the historic part. You're right, that's what we're all
I, too, was
about.
very disappointed. As a matter of fact, they don't even recognize San Juan Bautista Historical Society, which is 50 years old.
Well, they did refer to it as a historic preservation society or association or something.
That I thought was the historic part.
But see, that a lot of this
Those
stuff
are those things-
is style, like she used the word stylism, and that's the kind of change you can make without affecting the report. You know, introduction, photographs and stuff.
Or refine an EIR.
However, as these young people are going about preparing an EIR, looking at the documents that they have prepared, there are some obvious things to me that were missing in their thinking. And one is what Cara just talked about, the economic well-being based a lot on history, and to have ignored some of the very important things about our history is, I don't know what happened to them. And the other is that we are completely surrounded by county regulations. A lot of the suggestions, as I read through them, sounded to a person who didn't realize that as if the city has been neglecting its responsibility over these years for some of the things happening within our viewshed, but they're county. And I think that people in San Luis Obispo need to understand there are restrictions placed upon us by, well, I only name two. One is the county and the other is Caltrans. So if they have that basic understanding of what we're up against here, and then add to it all the beauty that being here in San Juan is about, as one of the most important cities still looks like it has historically forever, that they might have a different attitude as they go through the suggestions and develop the EIR. Thank you.
Any other comments?
No, I have another speaker.
Okay, no more speakers? I guess up to the commission now. Do you think this document is stable enough to start doing environmental review? And if so, I would entertain a motion to accept this for the purpose of beginning the environment. Oh, I guess to recommend to the council. Let's see. Okay, so we accept draft 2035 general plan draft and recommend to the city council the same. And so we have conducted the public hearing, and we've oral testimony, written comments, and public input. We have considered the testimony, written comments, and public input and other matters expressed at the meeting. And based on the information presented at the public hearing and other matters heard and received, the Commission determined Draft 2035 General Plan is adequate to accept and begin the next process of preparing an environmental impact report for the final draft of the 2025 General Plan. So, with that charge, I entertain a motion for action.
I move that we accept the draft 2035 general plan and recommend the city council do likewise.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, call for a vote?
Yes. Commissioner Guibert?
Aye.
Commissioner Galarte?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Maderas?
Aye.
Commissioner Franco?
Aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going up to item 5C. Consider amendments to Section 7, signs of the San Juan Bautista Design Guidelines, making the guidelines more user-friendly. That's a continued public hearing, and we have a problem with that. Our staff has been swamped with legal matters, and in the staff report have been unable to finish up that draft, and they're asking for a continuance to the September 2nd meeting. I'll call for entertain action, a motion for action.
A motion that we
Continue?
Wait,
that we continue this.
I would like to
To the next-
volunteer to make those changes. I'll just do it. I mean, I'd have to do it on the city computer because I don't have Adobe Writer anymore.
No, and I would welcome that. This is for Amanda to come in and sit down with Matt and I, and then we can show her how to access that, and then we can, because it just takes a lot of, it's not so complicated, but we just have to bring it up to date of what the thing is, and Matt and I have been just swamped with trying to get initial studies filed with the state clearinghouse and a number of things. We'd certainly welcome that.
Okay.
Okay, then, I'll entertain a motion to continue to September 2nd,
Yes.
and note that Commissioner Guibert has volunteered to assist staff in preparing the necessary changes so that it can go to the council.
Did you make the motion?
I make a motion that we continue this through September
Second.
Planning Commission meeting, that Commissioner Iber would help the city staff to complete the guideline.
Is there a second?
I second.
We better call for a motion since this is a continued public hearing.
Commissioner Guibert?
Aye.
Commissioner Galarte?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Maderas?
Aye.
Commissioner Franco?
Aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes unanimously.
And the nice part about it, we will not have any spelling errors.
Oh.
We better not, huh?
I gotta get one good.
Well, I'll be the judge of that.
Okay, now we're going to have an interesting one. We have an action item. Adopt Resolution 2014-XX, recommending to the City Council rescinding Ordinance 2014-01, which amended Section 11-04-110 and Chapter 11-29 of the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code to modify provisions for design and architectural review of retail businesses, restaurant businesses, and visitor accommodations within the city of San Juan Bautista. Staff, you want to bring us up on that one?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the ordinance, like the chairman stated, the commission passed it and recommended to the city council. City council held the hearings, adopted it, introduced the ordinance, and it became effective. Shortly thereafter, we received a lawsuit from the SSL law firm, LLP, out of San Francisco, and it was done in response to a CORD. It was the Alliance of Concerned Citizens Organization for Responsible Development. And so we met with the staff, we met with our city attorneys, we met with our treasurer, and we looked at our finance, and we found that the lawsuit will probably take 6 to 9 months to go through, and upwards of $150,000 to $200,000 to defend. And We would much rather spend that money on correcting our water problems, sewer problems. First cause of all the violations that were accused against the development of this was more CEQA. And the original ordinance back in 2007 was developed by a categorical exemption. We felt that this should have done the same thing, but the attorneys felt that the first cause of action is in violation of the CEQA standards, the violation of unlawful application of the CEQA exemptions. It violated the CEQA unlawful reliance on guideline sections 15821 and Public Resources Code 21083. And the fourth cause of action is violated the CEQA and failure to complete a environmental impact report. And the fifth cause was the violation of the California planning and zoning. And the sixth cause was the injunction relief, where they want to get paid for all of their attorney's fees. So based on everything that we've surmised, it would be easier for us is to take and rescind the ordinance. Council is on board with that. They'll rescind it. Then the judge can declare that the lawsuit is mute because it no longer exists. We will revert back to the 2007-04 ordinance process, and we can move forward. And so this is the staff's, the city council, and the legal city attorney's recommendation to go this way, because it's just a matter of there. And so they've prepared a resolution, and we've crafted it to, it reflects a lot of those same concerns. And, if you want me to read it, I can. It's a long introduction of a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista recommending to the City Council rescinding Ordinance 2014-01, which amends sections 1104-110 of Chapter 11.29 of the San Juan Municipal Code to modify provisions of the design and architectural review of retail businesses, restaurant businesses, and visitors' accommodations, and within the City of San Juan Bautista, and readopt the municipal code provisions rescinding by ordinance 2014-01, reestablishing limits on the approval of large-scale retail businesses, formula businesses, and visitors' accommodations.
And the correction on the fifth line, last word. Thought we'd review, not review.
Yes.
Okay, I don't like this, but justice isn't cheap. And I concur with staff that I'd rather see that money do something, some good within the city limits than go out to pay attorneys, hacking it back and forth. And so I think reluctantly the best action is what's recommended to us here, that the ordinances that the commission worked on so hard on, we will go back and revert to it. And this will mean that people who had wanted to come into the city, manager's going to have to tell them to go home, and it'll be business as usual. Any comments, commissioners?
Well, I feel the same way you do. Maybe I'm naive, but I never thought that we'd have formula businesses downtown. I think we're all concerned about the historic downtown district, so it seems like a waste of money and time to have to deal with this.
See, even if a formula business did come in, it's not what they want. If you want to be here, it's what San Juan Bautista wants. Or worked before, McDonald's came in and says, got to have 35-foot arches. That's corporate, and that has to be that way. And the Secretary of the Commission said, that's fine, but in Seaside, we do this. And when it was all over, it was like a 4x6 sign with golden arches on it. They wanted to be here. And the only issue was, what did the city want so they could be here? And if somebody came in here, I would tell them, you bring your clergyman, bring everybody, because if it ain't quality, it isn't San Juan Bautista. And the commission establishes quality here.
And we will continue to do that.
Right. And that's what we got appointed for. There's, as you go into these documents, it is the, what do you call it, the soul or the spirit of the city. And that's what we are maintaining. And when we feel that has an amendment is needed or new changes come up, or like I said earlier, times change. I just hope we never see where they're going to want to level downtown and everything goes south of 156. But that'd be for a future commission. Comments, Commissioner, before we go public.
Well, I just want to say that my name is David Medeiros, and I'm a commissioner of San Juan Bautista. I look at people who come to our city and present a lawsuit. I don't know who these people are. I don't know what their names are. You know, we're supposed to be transparent as a government, and I believe that the city continues to do that. Yet we have people coming forward to us, and I don't even know, I don't see their faces, I don't see their names, I don't know what they are. I did some research on this when I was given the lawsuit and read the terms that were in it, and I didn't see any violations. I didn't see anything that we did wrong as a government. I think we did all the right things to push San Juan in the direction we need to go. But the thing that really bothers me is I don't know who these people are. They get to throw things at me and say whatever they want. And I'm here every week, every month. I live here, but yet people come here and I don't know who they are, and that really bothers me, to let you know. And that needs to change, because we hear this, and I want to hear a resolution that says, okay, so where do we go forward from here? And I understand we're not going to spend money and all this other stuff. We're going to go back to the old ways of doing things. That's fine. But then we still need to go forward, and I think this is the wrong direction to take at this point in time by going backwards, and that's not why I've been appointed to do this. So disappointed and concerned what's going to happen in the near future. Every time that we come up with a decision, a lawsuit's going to be flagged in front of us, yet we don't get to see these people. We're not invited to, and the other thing that bothers me is that the city council put out this statement, and you know, it's like you got to say yes or you can't say no. So really concerned about the process, the appeal process that we have. It needs to change, and I'd like to find those people who want to change that for the better of San Juan Bautista and do what's right. That's my comment.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any commenters?
Yes. Larry Gerbrandt?
First of all, Commissioner Medeiros, I would love to help you in any way I can on your quest. So it's part of the business community. I have two questions, really. One is, what does this do to the Arco Station project? And I'd like if I can answer that, then I'll ask my second question.
The Arco Station will continue to move forward. The existing ordinance 2007-04 does not allow drive-through restaurants. The previous approval excluded that from the approval. This, as it goes forward, will exclude that from the approval process.
Okay, so it was never proposed to begin with.
Yeah, this commission approved it without the drive-through.
Got it. That's one piece of good news. Secondly, this town desperately needs certain basic infrastructure kind of businesses, like it'd be lovely to have a hardware store. It's hard to create a hardware store without an affiliation, without true value. Just because of the scale of buying that takes place, so that you can be competitive with other true value stores. We've had until recently a formula business, it was called a bank. It was associated with other banks. Nobody seemed to be bothered by that. The pizza factory is a formula business. And quite honestly, so is the windmill market. For the same scale buying that takes place. I'd love to see if nothing else, a place to drop off dry cleaning, which could very well be a formula, or a place to drop off prescriptions. It's affiliated with CVS. I mean, really basic infrastructure things. We're not talking about fast food restaurants here. First of all, how did we let slip through the existing formula businesses? And if those are precedents, I mean, what's the real issue here? And what are we trying to keep out of town? And also begs the question, if formula businesses are so bad, that must mean the windmill market, the bank, and pizza factory are bad because they're formula businesses. I mean, there's a certain hypocrisy here that I'm bringing up and challenging and wondering how we move forward, given the rescission of this particular ordinance.
Ask Accord.
Thank you.
I said ask Accord if they have the answer to that.
This is only a recommendation to the city council, isn't that right?
Well,
They have been, the planning commission has been known in the past to recommend, do I have my?
There's one more public comment.
Oh, excuse me.
Trish, yeah.
I thought we were answering him.
Carbon?
Carvon, 609 3rd. I was not a part of that lawsuit, just to let you know, but I did not agree with your decision. And it has nothing to do with quality. I think the Planning Commission is doing an excellent job, and I hope you will do an excellent job when you review the design of this large upcoming housing development. And if you want to know who probably filed the lawsuit, there were a lot of people that spoke out against it. So I would assume that those people who did not agree with your decision are the ones who banded together to file the lawsuit. And just to touch on formula businesses, the pizza place and windmill, they were grandfathered in because they existed before the original ordinance was adopted. And I believe banks are excluded. And everybody talks about a hardware store. Well, Ace Hardware is not a formula business, it's a cooperative. I've looked into it. And they do exist in many communities that ban formula businesses. But, you know, is there enough business here to support an Ace Hardware? I kind of doubt it. What some communities have done to provide the type of services that the community wants is that they have established a community store. So if everybody wants a hardware store that badly, or they want a dry cleaning store or a drugstore, the community can start it, a nonprofit. You can hire people, have somebody paid, you know, to organize it, to direct it, and it can be a nonprofit, and it can provide the services that you want. And there, if you are interested in that information, I can provide it to you. So the issue is that we don't want to homogenize this city and have it look like every other city in the state of California. We want it to be unique. We want it to remain a historic town, and that's what draws people here. They don't want to go to, or they will go to McDonald's. They won't go to JJ's because they know what they're going to get at McDonald's. They're not going to experience, you know, a mom and pop type experience that you would get in a historic city. And I think that's the point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cara, I appreciate all the work that you do and all of your comments, but you don't live in this town. You own a home here. We live here. We have to make life work here. You live in, you know, another community where you have all the amenities that you need.
The thing is, I do live here part-time. I did live here for 3/4 time, and now I'm here all week. So I try to be here as much as I can. You know, unfortunately, my circumstance is such that I can't be here 100% of the time. But I just rode my bike to Windmill today, and bought, groceries. And I drive to Hollister because I'm restoring the house. I have to drive to Hollister or to Gilroy every time I need a nail. It's a big pain in the butt. But, I do it because I love this town, and I'm against formula businesses. Thank you.
May I say something?
Yeah.
I've lived in this town for, oh, go ahead, Richard.
Here's Richard, come on.
Come on, Richard.
Yes, please.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, come on. Let me give you a list.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. Richard Ponce, 93 4th Street. And I'm really, really disappointed that this is happening. These people that are going along with this lawsuit have the opportunity to come up when we first started this whole process. We could have ironed out the problems they had. A lot of them that were initially against the gas station are no longer against the gas station, have realized that San Juan is dying. We need every dollar we can get. We do have a few franchises here. Somebody comes in and wants to do a franchise, that might be a potential lawsuit there, because we will not allow them, yet we allowed somebody else. We set a precedent. Another thing, half a mile out on either end of town, on all around San Juan Bautista, somebody can put a franchise. Somebody can put a gas station. It's in the county. And we're going to lose that opportunity to get some of that money. The downtown people they're dying. There is nothing going down there. And that gas station really, really would help. And other little things that we need here, drugstores, hardware stores, as far as the community getting together and creating a hardware store. You got to wake up on that. Thank you. Somebody left a pretty fancy home here. Thank you.
I have another public comment, please.
Sit.
And Mr. Chair, if I can just make one additional comment. That,
Sure.
Over the last 3 years, I've studied, and I've had to balance the budget, and sales tax is an integral part of our revenue stream and everything. And so I started to compare our sales tax and what we generate per population ratio of other cities, small cities, very similar to ours, as well as medium-sized cities. And we fall into the bottom 5 percentile of sales tax revenue per population. That's how low we are compared to other jurisdictions. Small cities generate more than us. And that's why when I embarked upon this and I came to the commission clear back in 2012 and we started talking about it, it's not so much changing the ordinance to allow the thing, it was given a negative connotation. And many times I sat in my office and I had from owners of Ace hardware store that wanted to come in and drugstores, and they says, I'm sorry, but your ordinance doesn't allow it, and we're not even interested. And then they would leave. And I recognize it was the negative tone of that thing that was bringing there. And that was what we tried to change. And then I look at the basic needs of any person. We want security, we want housing, but we want, most important, choices, the freedom to make choices. And now we don't have a bank, we don't have a hardware store or a lumber yard, no landscaping and floral or rockery, no emergency medical facilities, no barbershop, no baby or toddling clothing stores, no men and women's clothing stores, apparel shops and general merchandising stores, electronic stores, auto parts and outlets, dollar convenience stores, drug stores and pharmacy, furniture and bookstores, and like he said, dry cleaning. Those are things that we need to make the choices that we need.
I think we're dealing with something called protectionism. And you have folks who've been here, we don't want to upset their apple carts by having somebody compete with them. Well, sometimes competition brings the best out of both sides.
And vitality.
Vitality, and then sometimes even merge. But the bottom line is, they'll never get that chance. I mean, if somebody runs a business and just keeps it going the same way, they can keep going downhill because there's no competition and there's no reason to get better. But somebody comes in, it's like when that new service station comes in, I would expect that the service station at the Montgomery in Monterey is going to start doing something to make sure he doesn't lose his fair share of the business. And that would be cleaning it up, probably putting curb gutter and sidewalk, repainting the buildings, and making people want to go there because it's closest to the freeway. But there's no need to if there's no competition. Take it as I've got it. I mean, I parked there and a bird hit my car. I didn't like that. But I'm sure if he was to put cages up there or chicken wire, that wouldn't happen. But he's the only game in town. There's no need to worry about what birds do to the cars down below. So, in this case, protectionism is not good. And the cities grow through competition. It brings people in there to make things better, bring more opportunity, bring more jobs. But at this point, justice is not cheap, and we cannot afford it. And we have too many needs, unmet needs in the city. So,
Did we have another public opinion or comments? John? Yeah. No? Oh, okay.
okay, based on everything we've heard and talked about, I'll close the...
I have to say something first, and I just heard some comments in this meeting, and, I do not want San Juan Bautista to be LA. I don't want it to be San Francisco. I don't want it to be Gilroy. I want it to be San Juan Bautista. And I'm not afraid to go out and ask a formula company or whatever to see if they can help us to preserve San Juan Bautista for what it is. And this municipal code that we were trying to change opened the door for those people to collaborate with us, to communicate with us, to connect with us, perhaps allow us to grow as a community as a San Juan Bautista. This lawsuit says we'll never find that out. That's all we were trying to do, is find out whether it's going to work or not. It's all we wanted to do by changing and amending this municipal code. Now, we'll just never find out. But I know in my heart, somewhere down the road, these things will change, and the growth that we need, the San Juan Bautista will continue to progress, regardless of these whatever. So, anyway, I'm just really disappointed, and I wanted to find out about some of these formula companies or stores or whatever, and see what they've got to offer. Now we close the door and we don't know. We won't be able to.
See, in the final
I just want to
decision,
say thank you.
but in support of the Commissioner, the final decision on anybody proposing anything is the Planning Commission, with right of appeal to the council.
And unfortunately, they weren't here. The people who opposed this didn't come to our meetings.
Right.
See, isn't
It's
that
the
a
whole
violation?
process.
Shouldn't we be suing them?
Can I say one thing before you?
This
One
is
time,
significant enough.
San
that we
Juan
need to-
Bautista had one of the largest cement companies in the state of California. It employed a lot of people. We had a hardware store, we had a lumber yard, we had a bank, we had a doctor down there in town.
Pharmacy?
Yeah, and then we had a lot of little businesses in town. The bars were doing good. People were making money. We had 2 grocery stores.
Gas stations?
We had 6 gas stations. What does San Juan have now? Nothing. The bank just moved out of town. The state of California doesn't even take care of the park up here anymore. You go in the back, they got tarps over top the buildings. You go behind her house, the shingles are falling off the little jailhouse. You go on this side of the Plaza Hotel, the whole porch is falling apart. The state doesn't do a thing. They don't work with the city. The church don't work with the city. How do you expect this town to survive? It's not going to survive. I got shops down here in other town. These people are having a hard time meeting their payment and their rent. If they go out, this whole town is going to close down. We won't have nothing. That's all I got to say.
Mr. Chairman, this is a recommendation to the city council.
Right.
This,
Final action is theirs.
the final action is theirs.
Yes.
We have been known to not recommend
I
something.
think the reason we have it presented this way is that the city does not have the money to fight the lawsuit.
Thanks to them.
But they're going to vote,
And so it would be easier to go back to square one, retool, and come up with something that we can put through later.
I understand that. But I want the people who come in with a lawsuit to tell us how we're going to turn this around for the betterment of the city.
And tell us beforehand, not
And
after.
tell us beforehand, they come to us and say, we're suing you, this is your violations, but
And it's going to cost
here's the
you.
direction you really need to go because we want to help you with this. We're not getting that.
Basically,
So-
they're part of the problem, not part of the solution.
Definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're the solution. We're trying to formulate a solution, but the problem is all they're doing is being the problem, staying the problem, and not sharing how the city should be.
And on top of that, the
Probably-
city's paying for the attorney fees. They've gone up like 3 times what we normally spend a month for attorney fees.
Probably not one of these people were even at our hearings.
They weren't.
they weren't.
They go to
They just
city
filed a
council.
lawsuit.
Well, they went to city council, I guess. Or not.
See, that's why when we did the sign code, I wanted to
So-
have so many of these meetings, even at 9 o'clock in the morning, for the benefit of the business people, so that it wouldn't come to that. Say, hey, you had all these opportunities, and the council can say that. If you got some new information, it's going to go back to square one. The council is not supposed to take our ordinance and amend it. They're supposed to approve it. We're supposed to vet that thing through. And so we made every effort to get everybody to give the input so that document would be, great, guys, let's get on to next business.
So these people that file a lawsuit, it's not gonna cost them a dime, is it? It's gonna cost the city of San Juan money. They don't care.
The sixth thing there is injunctive relief is for us to dismiss it, we have now to go and sit down with them and says, what does it cost you to prepare this? We have to pay them as well as our city attorneys. We've already ran up over $15,000 worth of.
Let's cut our losses.
But if people care about the city, how do they do that?
They don't care.
But they claim they do.
They don't care. It's all talk.
So the injunctive relief means that
We pay
we
them.
are paying,
Their attorney.
whether or
They're paying
not
all their attorney fees.
the judge rules in our favor.
Why don't you see if they'll have a fundraiser for it? Like they did for their benefit.
Okay, based on the discussion we've had, public input we've taken and reviewed and considered, and our own considerations and comments, I entertain a motion for action. And the proposed here from staff is a resolution to the council saying, hey guys, based on everything, go back to square one. We're recommending it.
Well, what if we don't do this? Will the city council still?
Every time they meet, we're going to rack up more and more money. We're not going to, at this rate, we don't have the money to win.
Well, send the bill to the law firm.
They don't have to pay.
No.
In consideration of the council having understood our position and gone along with it in several cases, I feel as if I could make a motion.
Okay.
And how, shall I read every bit of this? Or just therefore
Yeah,
resolve?
put it in therefore.
I move that the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista hereby recommends to the City Council rescinding Ordinance 2014-01 of the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code.
All in favor?
We didn't have a second, did we?
Oh, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Call for the vote, ma'am.
Commissioner Guevara.
A reluctant aye.
Commissioner Gallardo.
Since I made the motion, aye.
Commissioner
You can do it under protest.
Commissioner Maderas.
No.
Commissioner Franco.
Aye under protest.
All members of the commission being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes 4-1 with Commissioner Maderas voting no.
Good guy.
And I think that was a good discussion. I think I think for the public, they know where the Planning Commission stands. I think we should probably, I would expect some people to come out of the woodwork and give us a hand to make this city work now that they know what the problems really are and that we're here to try and solve them.
And I wish we had a way of letting the public know how much this really hurts the city in more ways than one.
With the loss of our newspaper,
Well,
we lost that medium.
Not go there.
Well, we more than lost the paper.
Bonito Link is the only thing that right now that reaches everybody. And
Lord have mercy.
can I ask? Excuse me. Can I ask you your question, Mr. Reed?
Sure.
We need to get this information out. We're on CMAP, and the public will see this. But if Bonito Link carried an article, basically that had the feelings of this commission, and could you start that blog going down, does that make sense to you as somebody who's in the business?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. The more places you can put it, the better. I think Bonito Link would be a great outlet because it puts it out before people and allows people to put their responses so that everyone gets to see those responses. But you also might use the Facebook groups, some of the San Juan Facebook groups. And they could use some content that would actually be vital, that people would engage with. And I would send something to the freelance. Wherever you can get it out, get it out. I think it's important for people to understand what kinds of impacts this is having on the city. So the more that you can communicate, the better.
Thank you.
Individually as planners, or what is the process here?
Well, it's a commission. It was a commission decision. Following all this, everybody put their 2 cents in, and it culminated in this document. Like I said, under protest and reluctantly and whatever. We didn't like it, but we had no choice. I believe that. We had no choice because we cannot afford to carry the suit. And I think the opposition knew that, and they figured, we got big pockets, they got small pockets, we'll drain them dry. And they did. Sir.
Richard Ponce, 93 4th Street. How about town hall meeting? We haven't had a town hall meeting in a long time. That might be a good way to get it out. At a better location than the community center room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
even the ball field.
We've had several town hall meetings, so
And now that the court has won, they probably won't come.
Well, let the rest of the community know the
Yeah.
impact.
Well, having had a little bit of time to think about this, I think I would encourage you to write something, put it on Bonito Link or wherever, and then use your email lists to send that link out to whoever you can communicate with. And that way you have the ability to contact people, get your information out, even if it's just sending them a link that they can go to read the story. Or you can just email the story out yourself. But if you email the link and they do it from the link and encourage them to pass it around to other people as well.
Thanks, Bob.
Boycott their businesses if they have.
You might identify them.
Well, I only know one person's name. I don't know who the other parties are.
I suspect that might be something where someone might want to do is identify them.
In the meeting of their
And
group.
then I don't know if the Planning Commission had looked at the San Jose Mercury on July the 6th of 2014. There's an article in the business section of the San Jose Mercury, and it says, "Target to the rescue for a morbid center." And the city of Santa Clara, 2 years ago, passed an ordinance prohibiting franchise business to go into the shopping center. They were all complaining. And after 2 years, the shopping center at the Valley Fair, north of the Valley Fair, was in such dire shape that all the tenants petitioned the city to rescind that ordinance. And Mervyn's came back to the rescue and installed it as a base fit. And now the shopping center is very successful.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I'd like to do is thank the staff for researching all this and working outside of the envelope. and trying to make the city more viable,
More
economically
appealing.
stronger, and making San Juan a better city for what it is, San Juan Bautista. Thank you for all the hard work on the staff because they really put a lot into this. Disappointed we couldn't help you.
Thank you. Okay, action item 6B. Consider Resolution 2014-XX recommending to the City Council the annexation and pre-zoning of assessor parcel number 012-19-038, 012-20-001, owned by the City of San Juan Bautista, and 012-14-027, owned by the Cemetery District, and accept the findings for a categorical exemption under Section 15319, Class 19A, and Section 15320, Class 20B of the California Environmental Quality Act, aka CEQA. Staff, can you brief us on this?
Yes, the city owns a 3/4 acre parcel on Well 3 that's down at the end of San Juan Hollister Road and Mission Vineyard Road, and it's in the county. We're about to start commencing doing some construction. Because it's in the county, that means we have to submit plans and specifications to the county and pay a building permit to do any work. I felt that it would be prudent for us is to file a categorical exempt and then get that annexed into the city, and it'll save us that expense and put it more towards the well and the water softener plant. The other is the high zone reservoir, our 1.2 million gallon reservoir, that is in the county. It's not costing us a lot, but we pay property tax on that because it's not contiguous and it's in the county. And so by annexing that, we can forestall a $450 a year payment to the county for property taxes. The third is the cemetery. 1/3 of the cemetery, approximately 2.78 acres, I think, is in the county. And again, they get taxed for it. And I approached the cemetery district and we say, hey, let's declare it a categorical exempt, and we're going to zone it, the quasi-commercial, quasi-public property, just like our wells and stuff like that, and get that annexed into the city. It's right north of the VFW, which was annexed into the city. So those are the three properties that I felt that we can pre-zone as public and quasi-public land. We can do it under a categorical exemption, and then I can make the application to LAFCO and start the annexation process. There is an expense, there's an application to LAFCO, and then after we get approved of LAFCO, then we have to submit it to the State Board of Equalization and prepare some maps and fees for them.
You wouldn't consider the cemetery as temporary housing?
That'd be long-term housing.
Temporary.
It depends on your philosophical outlook, whether it's permanent or temporary.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think it's just. I
just had to do that.
It's just polishing up some of the inconsistencies of our boundaries now. There are a few other inconsistencies, but they're residential properties, and they're going to have to go through a mitigated negative declaration, and that's Elaine Reyna. Half of her house is in the county and half of it's in the city, and we wanted to, eliminate that in this.
Is the VFW in the city limits?
What?
The VFW?
VFW is in the city limits.
Because I got a map up there that shows it's in the county.
it does for
Yeah,
years.
yeah, it still says Shoshone, but I found the map and I went with Bob Breckman there and we found the thing where it was annexed into it in 1974. Yeah.
Are you going to vote on this?
I can't.
I know, but didn't you need to leave the room?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're pretty flexible.
But I do want to ask him a question. For the cemetery, is that, where's the Larios Cemetery part of that?
That is part of the...
Part of the red?
Yeah, right.
So the Larios,
It's all in the county.
Yeah.
it's all on that one parcel, even
That-
though it's a different cemetery?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, we've been asked to make the following finding for a categorical exemption. The parcels for annexation consist of existing public or quasi-public facilities. The annexation of the parcel meets the zoning district designated for the parcels. The annexation of the parcels will result in a change of the city boundaries, and utilities and services are available. The annexation of the parcels is characterized as orderly, contiguous outward growth of city boundaries that meet the general plan goals, objectives, and programs, and will not result in any significant effects relating to traffic, noise, air quality, or water quality. That the annexation of the parcels will reduce and minimize the intragovernmental permitting and enforcement duties between the city and the county. And so if we adopt this resolution, which includes those findings that I just gave you, the resolve is that the Commission hereby approves the pre-zoning of the parcels to public and quasi-public zoning districts and recommends to the City Council the annexation of designated zoning district classifications of assessor parcel numbers 012-19-038, 012-20-001, and 012-14-027. That's pretty clear. Is there any comments? Anybody want to comment on the public? I'm glad we get these kind. Okay, I'll entertain a motion for action on this. And basically would be to recommend to the City Council that I guess they're going to initiate the annexation process.
And prior to that motion, I think Commissioner Garrett should recuse himself from any...
Just sit down one.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And do we need to say the reason?
Yeah.
We can.
That
Why are
Commissioner
you-
Garrett is a board of directors of the cemetery district.
I'm a commissioner of the cemetery.
And as such would consider this a conflict of interest.
One of the three.
Okay. So, what, again, now we'll entertain a motion for action.
I'll move that the Planning Commission approve the pre-zoning of the parcels and recommend to the City Council the annexation and designated zoning district classifications of assessor parcel numbers 012-19-038, and 012-20-001, and 012-14-027.
You're not a math major.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. How about a vote? Yep.
Yes, Commissioner Guevara?
Aye.
Commissioner Gallardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Medeiros?
Aye.
Commissioner Franco?
Aye.
All members of the commission being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes, actually not present. I'm not sure how to put recused down as a abstained or an absent.
Absence.
I just say,
Okay.
I think it's the absence.
Passes unanimously 4-1 with Commissioner Garrett absent.
4-0.
Pardon me?
4-0.
4-0.
One absent.
4-0.
4-4, 0 against, and 1 absent. Something like that.
or you could say abstain, because he's abstained from voting on it. He recused himself and abstained. So he would be 4 A's and then 1 abstention.
Okay. Discussion items. Potential review program. And Commissioner Goularte, you have a comment on this?
Not tonight, thank you.
Okay. 7B was taken out. 7C, Cal Poly Studio Projects. I bet I never
I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Matt, and he's going to some background on that.
You know about things like this, I guess.
Yeah, just going to say Cal Poly. Okay, so city staff was approached by Vicente Del Rio and Hemalata Dandekar from the Cal Poly Planning Department about the possibility of having undergraduate students in their CRP 341 Community Design Lab in fall quarter 2014 create vision plans for several areas of San Juan Bautista. These plans, okay. Thank you, Roger. You also have this in your packet, each one sort of broken down specifically. This shows the general areas.
Yeah.
These plans can be used as an introduction to and visual representation of possible future specific plans in identified study areas. And they can serve to inspire, engage, and involve policymakers, advisory bodies such as the Strategic Plan Committee, of which I'm a member, and members of the public in the process of making the vision set forth in the general plan a reality. I worked with Matt Leal, Vincente, and Hema to identify 3 areas that could benefit from this project. So project area number 3, is the first one I've listed here, is Lang Street Park, Lang Street Extension, and Lower the Alameda area. Project area number 1 was the Mariposa Street, 2nd Street, Orchard Lot area, including a possible closure of Mariposa Street to automobile traffic. And project area 2 on the map here, the McElhenney Street gateway to the city. These areas were all identified during the recent general plan update as locations where development and or redevelopment should occur. There's more information in your packets, and they are asking for $13,000 to complete the project. So that's a basic overview, and then the specifics are all in your packet. So.
Just to add to that, this is you see where the Cal Poly did some other reports that were very, very specific to some needs that we had there, and I think they did an admirable job that gives us the footprint to deal with the Strategic Plan Committee and the Planning Commission to move forward and set the tone for what we want to achieve. And these 3 projects here would fulfill these same ideas that the Commission has talked about over the last 2 or 3 years. I know we've talked about doing the plan line on Lang Street and getting it out. So we'll galvanize and put together a plan that could be implemented through all the agencies.
And it's very design focused. I mean, that's the good thing about this specific project as opposed to the general plan process that we just went through, where it's very general, deals with a lot of different things. This is mainly focused on designs. So, we could get, there's going to be public meetings if this happens, and you'll get the public input on, historical preservation and how things should look. And so, we talk about closing Mariposa Street. What's the cobblestone going to look like, or the houses and the benches on either side. It's very visual, and the final products are all going to be very artistic. I've seen a lot of the work that these kids do, and it's amazing. It's way better than I can do in any of these computer programs. But yeah, so that visual representation is something that, say, the Strategic Plan Committee could then use to engage stakeholders, the public, and sort of whet their appetite, because they can see what the possible end product would look like. And that's very helpful a lot of times when you're trying to sell ideas and get people to invest in them. So.
And it's really important too is the area 3, which is really going to be the western gateway along the Colony, across the middle area. And now that we've got that mixed zone, not only of the Manning property as well as the Rodriguez, it's big enough to where if you really do some nice designs, it could be an integral part where it could be really the gateway of San Juan Bautista.
I like the idea, but we've had a lot of ideas come down the road. We had Cal Poly students with the American Institute of Architects here in 2007 with a design charrette, which encompasses a lot of that. The problem again is, where do we get the money to implement all these ideas, these visions?
Where do we get the people?
The people, yeah. I mean, it's great ideas, but how do we make it happen? And how do we pay for it?
You're right, yeah. I think that's the next step that I'd like to work with the strategic plan is once we get that there, is to mobilize how we can achieve some of these things.
Do you have a copy of this?
We have. Yeah.
And does the Strategic Plan Committee have a copy of this? I mean, I'll give you mine.
No, the committee does not have a copy of that.
Okay.
We had a brief meeting with part of the committee last week. Nat was there, and we're gung-ho on a couple of projects already, and we want to help as much as we can.
Okay.
Even with this proposal?
Well, I'm not commenting one way or another. I'm full, but yeah.
I support the concept here. Because like I said earlier, you got kids going to school, and they're picking up the new concepts of planning that didn't exist 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And we're going to be, the concept, the planning concepts will be 21st century. We need to sell the city of San Juan Bautista. And one selling point is you only get one shot to make a first impression. When you turn off of Highway 156 and onto Monterey Street and Montgomery there, is a disaster. And that's the first imprint you got of San Juan Bautista. And so that is something we need to work on, and we don't have staff that could sit down and spend all that kind of time on it, but we have adjunct staff who can come up with some ideas. Again, what they present is not what's going to go through. It's what the city planning commission and the city council want, speaking for the city, that's going to go through. But at least somebody has, instead of the council sitting down and trying to pull something together, it's much easier to edit or to look at an idea and say, you know, I like that except for, and they can crank on it. But without that, they're going to spend hours trying to figure what should we do. So let the consultants, basically the KISS, do all the legwork and all the head beating and say, what's the best that's going to come out of your studio here? And then we'll talk it to the commission, we'll talk to the council, and see where it's going to go from there. But that is a good way of getting in a lot of basic information, a lot of new ideas.
Well, we've done that. We've had that before, and nothing comes of it.
Well,
that's what we need to build into this program.
Okay, now then we have to have a. Okay, now the other guy. There's one other body stakeholder here, and that's what used to be called the Chamber of Commerce, the business people. You know, what are you willing to do for what you want to get? And if you want people to come into this town, you're going to have to get them to want to come off the 156 at that location. Help us make it happen. You know, are there grants that they can apply for that are available to business people, not to government, or something they could raise money for to clean that area up based on this, to that, or whatever? I mean, I think the students ought to have a copy of this so that they can work with it.
But do you want to pay $13,000 for undergraduates' work? I mean,
that's an issue. We did this with the general plan, and we're doing it with our environmental impact report. It's always an issue. It would have cost us $150,000 to $200,000 for the general plan. Yeah. And you know, we may have Park Avenue concepts, but we have very low budget. And this is a problem. And we've got folks who are going to put some new housing that people want to come in, but everybody wants to live in a full-service city,
and
regardless of size.
With respect to your feelings and recommendations, the council also has to look at the fiscal integrity, and they might say we might want to delay this to next year until we solve some of our more pressing problems. You know, so
Yeah.
I would like to see a better.
I think it has to be on your scope, your periscope.
Yeah. I would like to see a better organized plan for how they will meet with local people, go through, document the resources that we already have that they have used in order to prepare some of this.
Well, this is something we can put in a resolution to the council, saying, hey, we like the idea. We've got a lot of studies done, and let's get those kids to review that and before they go into this. I mean, again, it's just a matter of, you got to tell them, you know, it's like a recipe. What do you want them to know?
Well, we didn't have very good luck with the design guidelines for the signs. We're ending up having to do that ourselves after months of delay. And so I'm not in favor of saying yes to this idea for those reasons.
Well,
At this time,
I think it's a good idea, because you take like this Line Street, if they have a major earthquake and that bridge is gone, then people on that side cannot get out. So they're coming up with an idea to put another street in to tie that for these people to go both directions. Right now, if that bridge caves in and you can't get to the water tank, you can't get them people, or you can't get emergency equipment.
But did we need people from Cal Poly to do that, to explain that to us?
They're doing the research for us.
See, you got to do a lot of background material to justify spending money, to justify an action. Okay, we've got a staff that, man, they're swamped right now.
I know that.
And these kids, that's what they do in school. They're researchers.
When
But they do all that, and then what's going to happen to it?
then they send it to staff to
It'll sit
have
on
to
the shelf.
review. That's our experience.
Well, to me, the next step is the Chamber of Commerce.
We need a chamber, we don't have a chamber.
No, but I mean, but like I said, we need a business group, which, it isn't a city function. It's a business, you know, those guys got to, if they're dying bad enough, they're going to want to do something to save themselves. And this would be one way of doing it. Say, hey guys, start looking at making this, selling the city, making people want to pull off at 156. Yeah, I want to go see the Mission, boom, in and out, because it's nothing to see. But all of a sudden you see a nice entryway, that's my first impression, and drive down here to see a Mission, hey, you got a downtown here. And the more people that see it from other than a tourist position, I want to stay and do some business. I mean, start a business.
And the other thing on this, in comparison to what? I mean, as far as $13,000, what else? Where else could we go? That would, what would it cost us? And you don't have any comparisons, or maybe that needs to be part of that. Where if you were to get this someplace else, it would cost you $100,000 or something like that. And maybe we're really sitting on something here that's not very expensive, considering where we could go elsewhere and it'd be 10 times as expensive.
I think they're counting on.
This might be worthwhile looking into and see how much further we can go with it. Because the city Chamber of Commerce, you know, we don't have one. So that means the city is in trouble, it seems like. As far as businesses go, we need to start something to get things going if we're going to make San Juan Bautista the city that we plan it to be. So,
Well, and the merchants have been
trying.
trying.
So we've got to get things going. And this might be a key to do that.
So we have a track on this. We
Well,
were really ticked off with parking, and we got the council to call the stakeholders together. I mean, they can call the business and say, look, we got a real problem here.
I think between the staff and the strategic committee and all of us here at the Planning Commission and the City Council, we could probably come up with something.
You know, and if it isn't this year, like I said,
Yeah.
budgetary, but to say, okay,
Yeah.
maybe this is the answer. Is this a concept worth looking into, having the students do the background reports and some suggestions? If it is worth it, we can tell the City Council, you know, based on your budgetary considerations, we think this is something worth looking into because they have a track record of delivering on time, of working, you know, professionally, pulling information together, and with their design studios, which is what it's all about, they could be saying, hey, look into it.
So what do we want to do tonight? Ask staff?
Well, let's see. I think, no, at this point, I think it's to the council.
Let's hear from the public.
What?
Let's hear from the
Let's hear
public.
from the public.
Do you want to add anything
Let's hear
from a
from the
staff
public.
perspective on this thing yet, or do you want to wait until after public comments? Or
Bob Reed, General Planning Committee, Strategic Planning Committee. I just wondered if there might be some advantage to having the work done, so that if for some reason there came funds available to do shovel-ready projects or something, that we would have projects ready to go. Not that we don't already have things we need to do, but this might be an additional thing that may be a resource.
Yeah.
What's this gonna end up costing the city?
13,000.
13,000.
13K.
13,000 for
$13,000.
for the fall studio.
Money well spent.
You do?
Yes, I do.
It's like a walking.
That way we got something we can always go on.
That's
Well, we have a taxpayer who's going to pay for the bill here to want to comment on it.
Yeah.
That's what, it's again, it's our
Entrepreneur.
tax money, and it's where do we want to put it to get the biggest bang for the city.
I'm going to combine several comments because I've been listening, for the past 2 hours back there. One, we were talking about communications within the city, and I just wanted to let you know that we have a subcommittee of our committee. It was led by Shauna, who used to be city clerk here 7 or 8 years ago, and she has some great ideas, and we're going to be moving forward on that. So I just want to let you know we're kind of charging full steam ahead in that area, I think.
And design?
And the design?
No, what is your committee doing?
There's a lot of subcommittees. This was a communication, governmental communication subcommittee of our committee, and we have a lot of great ideas. We've been working on developing a few plans. So really, you guys were complaining about it, and you know, let's do Facebook, let's do Benito Link, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we have some ideas in that area too, and Sean has them pretty much spelled out, and I'll be happy to pass them on to you when I can. And anyway, as to the design labs for Cal Poly, you know, my first inclination is it's a great idea. My second inclination is where do we get the $13,000? You know, so those are conflicting values, I guess. You know, in my remarks I emailed to almost everybody up here today, you know, I did talk about the Macomb corridor, and that's where I really think we need to really put all our emphasis on short term, and long term it'll pay a lot of benefits. Mostly, you know, all the research I've done, and that's not a lot, but it's enough. You know, residential housing doesn't really pay the freight in businesses as income tax to the city coffers. It's more commercial and industrial type thing. So, you know, that's what that corridor should be. You know, a great series of restaurants and high-end shops or whatever, you know, that we, a hardware store that we can attract. Yeah, and that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carl?
I'm just wondering if the city can offer any kind of incentive to have businesses get established here. I mean, what do other cities do to get businesses to set up shop? I don't, you know, it's not my field.
Well, I think one of them was to loosen regulations so that people could
Why do we have to
propose-
rely on corporate America? What about
Well,
all those other
you
people out there?
You asked about businesses coming in.
Yeah.
So when we relaxed this thing, anybody who wanted to come in would have an opportunity.
I'm not
But
talking about
we are-
corporate America.
We're talking, well, again, it's a basic principle of management. If you have to ask who's in charge, it ain't you. And I'm saying if the corporation comes in and says we're going to have 36-foot arches or we're going to go home, we're just going to say go home.
Right.
So if we want to design, you know, McDonald's in Arizona, 28, 30 years ago, McDonald's is very, very tight. Nothing changed. You got down the southwest, and all those buildings had southwest-looking architecture. It wasn't because it wasn't because corporate America wanted it. It's because the locals said we want the Southwest to look southwesty, and you know, Golden Arches ain't going to do it that way. See, so they knew who was in charge, and they let corporate America know. If Ace Hardware comes in here, and they want to do something that's got to have great big, you know, glass and steel, whatever, fine. Where are you going to do this? Because you're not going to do it in San Juan Bautista. Give me a building that's going to look San Juanish, and we'll start talking. And until that thing looks San Juanish, it ain't going to go through.
But that's not my question. My question is, what kind of incentives can the city offer to have businesses? You know, we had, a while back, there was this idea of having co-housing, and there was this whole thing set up, and everybody was all excited about it. But
yeah, that was mixed land use. That was that's the concept of the 80s.
Right. Well, but
Actually,
it
it was
included
the 1880s,
shopping.
1880s too.
It included a lot of retail businesses as well. The question is, what do they waive taxes? Do they, you know, what kind of incentives?
I mean, you can do that. But right now, okay, look at corporate America. They build a big shopping center.
I'd
Okay,
rather
now
not discuss,
let me
you know,
finish. The
formula.
corporate, they have what's called anchor tenants at either end. They don't pay rent. They draw. And everybody in the middle pays rent, and all this money starts moving. But the big corporate, the big anchor tenants, they come in dirt cheap if they pay at all.
Okay, but
See,
what
so-
do other cities do to draw in? For example, San Carlos, where I'm from originally, they waived all the parking, and now we have tons of restaurants. Downtown is very vibrant. It's a very small, it's about a 5-block street.
But you
commercial.
waived parking?
They waived the parking, and all of a sudden, here are all these restaurants. It's busy every night of
Where
the
do
week.
they park?
They park
I mean,
around.
I'm serious.
There is one parking lot, and that's it. But when it's hard to find parking, it means something's going on. Something
Right,
exciting's
disaster.
going on.
We have free parking.
We had
So-
And people go someplace
We had a
else.
business that come into San Juan, a gas station, and they got a lawsuit against it.
Well, I'm talking about this McCollum corridor. What can we offer businesses in exchange for, having them come here?
At this
There
point-
must be, other cities do it. I'm not in the know, but, I'm sure our city manager has ideas on what we can offer people.
Okay,
I
say,
wouldn't offer them anything, just make it easy for they could come into town. Every time we do a project in the town, there's a lawsuit against it. I built my mall down there, we had a lawsuit against that, it took us almost a year to get it out of the hot.
Well, it's a small community and
I
people
can
feel
answer
strongly.
part of your question. A business, so we let somebody come in with okay, take my own brother as an example, auto repair. I could have gotten them into location and with a variance on parking, they were dirt cheap in that city. It says, I fix cars. A variance is a piece of paper. I need a place to put the cars. So he wasn't looking for an exception to get out of it. He needed a lot and a building and enough parking for his customers and the cars under repair. And that's a good example. Now, if we say, what incentive do we give somebody? If somebody comes in, wants to come into town, they want to know that there's other businesses that are going to support them. I sell widgets and you buy widgets. Okay, that's something. But if I'm making widgets and you're not there to buy them, I'm hurting. So what you want to do is you want to develop a downtown that is full service, that has all the things that people come in, a doctor and no patients. Doesn't work. So we are trying to develop a city that not you personally, you the consumer would want to come in and set up shop because the city has done a lot. They've made the place nice. They've got people to come in. They've got other ways for people to come in. They have other major attractions that people would come in, leave their car with me, and go over here. Well, I fix it. It's a full service. Monterey gave 70 to 90% parking variance for everybody on Cannery Road. And when the aquarium came in, they were told, you make us put in parking, and we're going to go someplace else. And this is a fact. Okay, so they put in the aquarium, they waived the parking, they put in the aquarium, and it was disaster city for a year. Until the city says, wait a minute, we've got parking garages downtown, and finally they put in the parking garage that you see today, and that's filled up. So giving people parking variance or exceptions, I don't think is a benefit to them or the city.
Well, that was just something I threw out that worked.
No, but no, I see where
worked
you're
in
coming
that
from.
city, but maybe there are tax incentives, business type incentives. I don't know what they are, but I'm sure city managers and people who work in that area, they would know and they could come up with some suggestions that might help attract businesses to this McCollum.
But they've got to be able to come in.
But the magic word there is business, right? The magic word there is business. To develop the business that we need for San Juan Bautista.
Right.
And business is the key word, whether it's a large corporation or a small corporation.
I agree.
Or yeah. So.
Yeah. She was kind of saying, what kind of incentives? I found one of the most effective that I have is that we streamline our regulations, we cut to the chase, we process it. Time is money to developers and businesses. And if they know they can come into a city, present the things, come in, hold the public hearings, get with it, go there, and get them going, that's more important than giving them tax incentives, because the city of San Juan only receives 4% of every tax dollar. And you say, okay, we'll waive it for 10 years. Well, 4% is nothing, but time is the most important asset. If they're going to spend millions of dollars and they got to go out and borrow it, and they're going to pay 8% or 6% interest on that, time is money. And that's the ingredient that I always promote. Come to me and I'll get you in front of the planning commission, an informal clear, and then we can find out if you're going to meet our standards, and let's get with it. That's the most important asset, I think.
That review you talked about,
Yeah.
that's worth money. Any place else, you pay hundreds of dollars to have your preliminary project reviewed to see if they even want it. And here, we don't charge. They get a lot of free comments, and the architect has something solid to work with. I had to apologize one time to somebody because it was going to take me 3 weeks to get his application solved. Mr. Franco, he says, that's not even an issue. He says, the other guys told me 6 to 8 months to process the same application. So time is money. They want to get in. But they also need those other supporting industries and businesses around them.
It's really like Ace Hardware will not come into a town unless it's got 15,000 people or more. And that's what our problem is. We don't have enough people to support these. We have to start small, start building it up.
So I think we've had a good discussion here tonight on real issues in the city.
What about this? Are we making a motion for?
No, it's a discussion item.
That was a
Is
discussion
this discussion or what?
Just discussion.
Okay.
But back,
We've
So,
I recommend we continue it.
okay.
but
So,
before we leave, these things that we've been discussing today, do you think that these students are aware of these kinds of issues as they approach one of these projects?
Not yet, and that's
No,
our job.
and how
And
are
that's
they
why I
going to
think-
get aware if they aren't here in San Juan doing some of the work, meeting people?
But they've been
listening
working
to
for a
them?
year
No,
with
these
those
are-
I don't
committees.
believe,
These are
I
different
just don't,
students,
I
but-
don't
They're
have
undergraduate
faith
students.
that they are going to be close enough to the issues to focus their work to produce something that we
That's real.
want
Right.
and that we're paying for.
yeah, I'm saying the same thing. I'm listening to Vonda, what she is asking for, what concrete steps are we taking from this day forward to give us some kind of answers that we've all been asking for with the comments, answer to all the comments that we gave you today. So I think from this is what we want back. So that in that, we have some kind of steps that we're going to take that will implement some kind of action.
I fully agree, and I actually am a proponent of kicking this to next fall if you are going to do it, because I want to structure this the right way, and I think it should necessarily be paired with definitely the strategic plan committee, probably a definite historic preservation committee element, and possibly the San Juan committee, which I think is the name of the quote-unquote Chamber of Commerce.
And there's another whole group of people who don't understand what they're doing either. That
Right.
was just meeting last week.
But I think structuring is going to be very key to this in order for it to be something effective that gets the transition from a vision to reality going. I don't want, I don't want to put in a bunch of work on something that's going to sit there, and this would be a lot of work for me. So I'm also not a proponent of something like that.
I think the goal too is put a value in the 13,000. What is that? Why is that so valuable for San Juan?
Right. Well,
And that's the answers we're looking for.
fitting it with the streamlining he was talking about is a key component of what this would do, because then you could have a visual representation of what you want something in that area to look like. You say, oh, your business wants to come into McKelvey, this is what your business is going to have to conform to. And it would demonstrate the exact building standards that we were talking about from, the general plan or for the D'Ambrosia project, and we would have a visual representation they can look at and say, look, this is where you're going to have to fit. Can you fit within those constraints? And I think that's a definite bonus of a project like this. And not depending on my art skills, because I was an environmental planning student, not urban design. So if it falls to city staff, you're going to have to deal with my representation. It's not nearly as good.
Forgive me, Cara, the problem in McKelvey Street entrance is the historic house. The owners have been stymied by that, the possible owners have been stymied by that. And in the meantime, we have neglected it to the point it's
Collapse.
gone.
Yeah, but I mean, even in this general plan, there's some, mock housing density things that show how buildings could be put around that house without
We all know
destroying
that.
it,
We've studied that for
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
But now it has gone to the point where is it worth saving? And so that is the real issue of that whole space there. Or somebody would have bought that and tried to do something with it years ago. So let's get real.
Yeah, good, yeah. We need to get real, you're right.
I don't
My
have mine.
phone's off.
What was that? Garbage?
Wasn't mine.
Skating, skating.
Mine wasn't talking here.
Okay.
Nope,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm not the culprit.
Okay, I turned mine off.
Another lawsuit.
She wanted us to turn it off.
I turned mine off.
We can continue this and we can talk about it. It's not a pressing issue. We want to just got to bring it
I think, but for the long term, though, I think it's something that it's a way to reach a goal. Somebody's going to have to do some research, some ideas, and subject to budget, which that's fall on your bailiwick. But yeah, it's just budget's going to matter, and also that the folks can do the job. But I think that, if after discussion we feel that this is a feasible thing, we can just tell the council, look into it. If there's no money, then on the next budget, see if we can come up with 13,000, and here's what we'd
Is
get.
there any grants out there for this kind of stuff, Roger? Can you get grants?
Oh, that's writing the grant?
Grants come time to time, and you have to just kind of search and
Pull them all in together?
the opportunity arises, yeah.
Gonna let the students work on that too. Let them start picking up rocks and
Yeah.
looking under them. I mean, it's something. I think it's a tool that a planner has to have. Know how to shake the money tree. Okay, so I think by consensus we can just continue. We just continue the discussion to another time. But keep in mind that this is a way to achieve what we want to get. Or have somebody give some ideas, pull stuff together. Okay, what happened next? Parking in the city update.
Yeah, the city council received the commission's letter. I took it under and discussed it, and they absolutely agree with you. Directed the staff to prepare a letter and send it out to all the stakeholders that would be affected like that. Trish has been getting some feedback from people and everything. Hopefully we can get everybody to the table, and then we can formulate a focus and a policy and a direction that we can achieve for this parking in the downtown area, particularly the buses.
These letters are going out. Are the planning commission and the city council being invited?
Oh, yes.
As well through this letter?
Oh no! Wait a minute.
In response to this letter?
No, this is to the stakeholder. This is to the wheels.
But we'll get invited to these meetings.
I wouldn't expect it the first ones.
No?
No, because we want them to sit down and start talking about the
okay.
stuff that we had, and then when it comes down,
Aren't we part of them?
Yeah, but we turned it over to the
Aren't we them?
to see the superintendent of schools. By the way, he's a neat guy. We met him at that joint meeting. He is it sounds to me like he's really receptive to working with the community. State Park Superintendent, he ought to know how we feel about it. The Bishop, he ought to know how we feel about it. I mean, between the parks and the bishop and the diocese, that's the biggest draw we've got. You take out the mission, you take out the parks, and what have we got left? Cemeteries.
The council appointed two subcommittee members to it, and that was Councilman Anch and Bob.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
They're on
Yeah.
the committee.
I know that.
Do you think it would be helpful to do an email, something like SurveyMonkey, where you could quickly get everyone's schedule?
Yeah, I'm looking into
If
that.
everybody's on.
State parks people said, well, I'm available these days, but I'd like to suggest that you use that.
Something digital, yeah.
Would it pay
The
for us
bishop has
to,
that?
Well, probably. I mean, I would think so.
would it pay us for us to have Anthony Batella fire off the letter? Supervisor of Seminole County, and And who's the other one, Samphire?
No, not at this point. This is boots on the ground, guys in charge who make the decisions.
These are the stakeholders that are affected by this. It's the diocese,
Yeah.
the state park, the city of San Juan Bautista, and the
School district.
School. Those are the four stakeholders that are going to be affected. And I think we want to get those chiefs together, and then they'll decide, well, let's appoint a committee to work on it and come up with a plan.
Sam Farr is having a town hall meeting. Does anybody here know when? It's this month. I think it's towards the end of the month.
I got my notice in there someplace.
How would they answer the question of what happened to the in lieu fees? Do we have a fund, parking fund, or?
We have a parking in lieu fee, impact fee, yes.
But do we have the fund from all the impact fees, or were they given back, or how did that work?
If you don't use them within 5 years, then you got to refund it back. Yeah.
So we don't have any resource.
Okay. What's next? The brewery update.
Just to let you know, the owner, the applicant, has got into a protracted quagmire with his architect, and but hopefully that thing is getting resolved. I was in contact with him, told him to get there, and he's had a crew starting to clean up and everything, and he was there this morning, and I met with him, and he has the direction. I sent him the list of conditions and a lot of information, says you have to accommodate this, and he fully understands, and he's got to get moving on it.
Does he really have an architect working with him?
He's employed an engineer to kind of ride herd on it. He's got some design people that are working on it, and he still has M&H working on the site plan. And that was one of the, I want to say, technical points. Is M&H did the design of the parking lot and all of the stuff, but they forwarded it to the architect, and the architect put it on his stationery, and now he says, well, that's my information. And finally, we got together with M&H and says, wait a minute, it's their product, it was just on your stationery, so we extracted that out, so now it's a separate document, so now M&H is running
Intellectual property rights.
But it got worked out, yeah.
Okay. See what's the next one we've got here. UGB, Urban Growth Boundary Extension Appeal.
There's a non-appeal.
How does it get to be called an appeal if it's not an appeal?
This is
Gotta call it something.
This is just nothing more than informational, to let you know, after the last urban boundary there, we received an appeal, and it was appealed by one of the court members, but it was received at 9:50 Friday night, the last day of the appeal. It didn't have any application or fee there, and it didn't meet the deadlines, and so I asked the deputy city clerk here to prepare a letter stating that the appeal was been denied, and because it wasn't in on time, it wasn't accompanied by the proper fee, and it was misrepresenting the date. The action took place July 1st, not July 2nd.
What was their response?
We haven't heard back from them.
No response required?
No.
Because it wasn't an appeal, really, if it didn't work.
They didn't meet the
We
requirements.
didn't accept
Right,
it as an
didn't
appeal.
accept it.
They missed it.
And before we sent the letter out, we conferred with legal counsel.
Good. Okay, that brings us to the end of our business. Future agenda items? I think we've talked about a bunch of them.
I was thinking that the Ambrosio project or development that we're approved today, is that going to be part of our agenda as we go each month? A report on the progress there?
Not until the city council approves the PUD.
Right, I know, but I mean...
It'll come back, and then when they start to develop their plans, they'll bring the landscaping and then the design review of the homes to you and stuff like that.
And what about the Dadball development? I mean, we don't get any reports on that.
That is currently being circulated in the state clearinghouse, and that will probably come back to the city council September the 16th, I believe.
That went out for EIR already?
Yeah.
That's the Arco station.
Yes.
And when you think about gas stations, when you pull off the road as far south as I don't get any farther than Ventura, where can you pull off the road into a gas station between Santa Barbara and here? This might be it.
It's been a long time.
It's been.
And buy a lot of tickets too.
Yeah. There's,
Okay, so no future agenda items. Okay, comments. Commissioners, anybody want to say anything?
I would like to, I know everybody's anxious to go, but I've been going through the Mission News records that we've acquired. We've acquired Ed Lamb's entire collection. And in 1930, they were dealing with the same issues we're dealing with now. So I just want to read this. This was, Ben Ahern was the editor of the newspaper, and he was the son-in-law of one of the Lavaninos. He married Edith, and he owned a shop where the Plaza Market was. Try San Juan first should be the slogan of every citizen who wants to see this city progress. It is the community spirit that brings the citizenship closer together and eliminates the lines drawn by cliques. To accomplish anything for the good of the community, a sentiment in favor of the proposed project must be created, and it is easy to create this sentiment if the proper community spirit prevails. The main object of this life should be to make the world a better place in which to live, but this cannot be accomplished with the citizenship pulling in different directions. The lesser difference should be forgotten when a project is put forth whereby the entire community will prosper and be benefited. If every citizen of the community would get together and eliminate minor prejudices, work with but one objective in view, and that to make San Juan the best city in the state in which to live, the things accomplished would form a monument to the present generation that would live through the ages and be an inspiration for future generations to continue the good work.
Good
work. So we can only hope to someday make it happen.
Let's put it in the window.
Okay, city manager, any comments? Staff? No?
I'm delightful that Matt's here to help me.
Wow, good. That's a good point. Remember that when you get evaluated. Okay, I'll entertain a motion for action.
I move that we adjourn this meeting of the Planning Commission.
I'll second that.
All in? We don't need a formal vote, man? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's go.
Thank you all for coming.
9:05.
It's been so long.